Can I tell you how excited I am to be here with all of you today? What I'm about to share with you right now could change your life or even someone you know. I want you to imagine working in a small room with nothing but a microwave, refrigerator, and a beautiful view through caged windows of a prison yard. Yes, you heard me, a prison yard. That's excluding all of the work equipment, of course, like the radios and the switchboard. I worked in a prison in Massachusetts for 22 years. I was a dispatcher for 13 of those years. There were days where I couldn't even get relief to go to the bathroom. If I asked for relief, it would take them over an hour to come relieve me. Sometimes it was just more aggravating to even ask. As time went on, all of us dispatchers came up with a plan to let someone else monitor the radio and just let the phone ring. Enough was enough. I used to bring peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for dinner most of the time, so I could just stuff my face while answering the radio and the switchboard. I also had to be prepared to do doubles, especially on weekends, because people just wouldn't show up. So let me give you an idea of just how busy we were. Many years ago, the sheriff was trying to decide if they wanted to do automated calls. Yep, we didn't have automated calls at one time. So I had to tally up all the calls on a Friday night. I counted 400 calls. It is an all-male prison with mostly men working there. When I started in 1990, we had about 700 to 800 inmates. When I left in 2012, we were up to about 1,200 to 1,300 inmates. So that can give you a little bit of an idea of how busy we were. I was supposed to be scheduled with other dispatchers, but half the time they wouldn't show up or even leave early. It was all about who you knew there. I didn't have that many political connections like some people did. I couldn't get away with some things others could. I was an essential employee. I could never call in sick. I drove through every snowstorm, blizzard, and ice storm you can even imagine. It is by God's grace I even made it through all of those. So I ask you, what does that sound like to you? Well, it sounds to me like I was a prisoner myself, doesn't it? My only saving grace was I got to go home every day. It was extremely stressful. I worked for the heart of the institution. When I came in, everyone was asking me a million questions. The phones would be off the wall. Back in the day, there was no roll call or filling anyone in from the shift before. I had to make the calls and basically figure out what happened the shift before. Things like what officers were covering hospital duty, things like that. I worked 3 to 11 most of the time, and excuse my language, but that's when shit would hit the fan. We had riots, escapes, hangings, you name it. I handled it all. I even handled most of the investigations. The officer would just sign on the dotted line. Everything went through me. The rules weren't as strict or enforced in my early years of working there. As time went on, they did have to change things as they did become accredited. So why am I telling you all of this? Well, let me tell you. Due to the stress of this job, my health began to deteriorate. My body was shutting down. It was telling me, if you don't quit, I'm going to quit for you. I developed multiple food allergies. I did try to find another job, but with no luck. Instead, I changed job positions. I became a secretary for 6 years. But due to budget cuts, I had to go back to dispatch for another 3 years. Lucky me. So the last 3 years wasn't quite as stressful. I was on the 7 to 3 shift, and usually other people were on with me. My health reached its tipping point Christmas night, either the year 2000 or 2001. I forget exactly which year. I do remember taking a bite of turkey, spinach, and a sip of wine. That did it. My throat closed up and I went into anaphylactic shock for 2 hours. I remember trying to crush Benadryl, like the tablets, and get that down. I couldn't swallow water. I couldn't do anything. I was just vomiting. I was just vomiting saliva because my throat was closing up. Well, finally we decided I had to go to the hospital. I was vomiting every 10 minutes. I remember throwing up at the emergency room window. Merry Christmas to that poor guy. They flushed my system out with IV fluids and I believe Benadryl as well. I did have warning signs prior to this. When I was younger, I didn't like rice pilaf. I kept choking on it. I'd like gag on it. And I'd also gag on beans after eating like hot dogs and beans. My sister used to make fun of me with the beans. I'd be up all night going, gagging on it because I was allergic to them and I didn't know it. And my mom just thought I was being picky because I was a very picky eater. I'd eat and I'd have a hard time swallowing. So here's one of the first warning signs after my childhood. When I was 21, I had to have my tonsils out. My glands were swollen, but my throat did not hurt. I kept hoping they'd get better. I remember turning my head and my neck would hurt, but not my throat. I still lived at home, so my mother finally put her foot down and said, "You need to go to the doctor." So I went to an ear, nose, and throat doctor. He said my tonsils need to come out. So after my tonsils were removed, I couldn't get anything down. I couldn't swallow the medicine, apple juice, or even chicken broth. Once again, I would gag from those items. I would start gagging every time I tried to eat those things. I dropped down to 92 pounds in 3 weeks. Once again, my mother said, "Something's not right. You need to go to the doctor." So off I went, and I quote, "My doctor said, 'You're healing fine. Go home.'" Okay. So, well, as I said earlier, that was one of my first clues. I did have food allergies back then, and I did not know it. Neither did my doctor. As years went on, every once in a while I'd eat something and I'd have a hard time swallowing it. I had to wash it down with water. Other warning signs were I was always tired. I bought every piece of gym equipment you can imagine. I bought a treadmill because I wanted to have more energy. I bought a rebounder. I was an infomercial junkie. Most people would exercise and have more energy. Not me. I wanted to take a nap. It would take me a year to lose weight, no matter what I did. Turns out that was because I was not digesting my food. I also became lactose intolerant. I had another hospital trip, 1 year after the first one. This was the day after Christmas. Lucky me, once again. I thought I was eating healthy. I had a bowl of fruit with whipped cream, and that did it. I wound up in 8 hours of pain in the ER hallway. Did they diagnose me with that? No, but I figured it out. I had a pudding a few days later, and I was in pain from that. I started to realize I had food allergies. So finally, I decided to go see an allergy doctor. I tested positive for everything. You name it. Gluten, wheat, soy, corn, milk, nuts, oats. At the time, doctors just didn't know how to help me. I even went to a nutritionist, and she was more concerned with me getting the right nutrients, the right amount of carbs, the right amount of proteins, fats, which is totally understandable. She wanted me to take a protein powder and a drink called Boost. Well, these just had too many chemicals. My body couldn't process them. I couldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole. Now, I didn't have just one near-death experience, but quite a few. I remember a few times at work, I'd go into anaphylactic shock. I'd put my feet up on the desk and pray it would pass, or go in the bathroom and put my feet up until it passed. And that means my throat was closing up. I needed for that to go away. So are you ready to hear my rock bottom? I was scared to eat, so I was starving myself. I craved sugar so bad that one day I stopped at the grocery store to get marshmallows. My body needed sugar. Oddly enough, the marshmallows didn't bother me, but I knew I couldn't live on marshmallows alone. So here's the good news. Let me tell you how I overcame all this. Oddly enough, I went back to school for my Bachelor's of Health degree. My teacher had me write a paper, and she suggested I go see the movie Super Size Me, which I had never heard of at the time. So from there, I went on to the website and emailed Alex Jameson. She was my first mentor and health coach. But my journey did not stop there. A few years later, I attended the New York School of Integrative Nutrition. and also took a raw food class. I remember telling Alec, someday we'll be working side by side, helping people. And we are not working together now, but in a sense we are, because we both help people. It wasn't until I started eating whole foods without cooking that I started to really reset my body. After seeking many practitioners and doctors, I finally realized gluten is the biggest culprit. The gluten wouldn't digest, and then other foods wouldn't go down either. Add stress to the mix, and you have a toxic poison, because your body becomes inflamed from the foods not digesting, and then stress also makes your body inflamed. So that makes it hard for you to process foods. So let me leave you with a few tips today. If you're working a stressful job, find another job or job position within the company. If you get sick in any way from the stress, get it documented. This was my biggest mistake I made, was not documenting it when I was sick at work. Learn to perceive things differently. When I went back to dispatch, I was helping the people around me. Every once in a while, I'd hear things like, Paula told me about chia seeds or hemp seeds or even gluten. Eat less processed foods. These are really hard to digest. They contribute to weight gain. They contribute to digestive problems, colon cancer, all these types of things. You need to be able to break down and process the foods you eat, or you're going to have problems later. You want to make sure you're drinking enough water. Right now it's allergy season. Water helped me tremendously with allergies. So I would stop sniffling and sneezing when I started drinking a lot of water. It helps with joint pain and even weight loss. We need to eliminate the foods we're eating. Add a little lemon or lime to your water. This alkalizes it. Illness can't live in an alkaline environment, which means there's more oxygen in your body. So with all of these things coming up, the COVID variants, the flus, get alkaline. Get more greens in your diet. Get more alkaline water in your diet just by adding a lemon or a lime. It's just like a regular plant. Plants give off oxygen. Plants give off oxygen in your body and helps fight illness. Make sure you're getting enough vitamin C and D. Vitamin C really helped me with my allergies. Getting enough fruits and vegetables, it boosts the immune system. Vitamin D also boosts the immune system. You can get it from the sun, get outside, get sunshine, get the oxygen from outside, go for a walk. Anything you can do to get that vitamin D, get oxygen, that'll really help you. And in closing, I just thank God that I'm still here after all these near-death experiences. And I want to thank all of you for having me here today. It's been an honor and a blessing. I do hope that my story can help one or many out there, and especially want to thank you out there who are watching. I look forward to meeting some of you in questions and answers. Enjoy the summit. Thank you.